Hey everyone, it's Craig from Paramount Financial coming to you with another video. In the past two videos, Zach talked about owning versus loaning, so stocks versus bonds. What's the difference between the both of those? And then his other video, he went a little more in depth in the different types of bonds and the different types of stocks. But today, I thought it'd be good to talk about what types of accounts do you hold the stocks and the bonds in. And a lot of times when I go speak at local high school to high school kids or even college students as well, they always ask me, well, when I'm employed, do I have like an employer plan? Like, how do I start saving to that? So that'll be nice to talk about the difference between retirement accounts and then non-retirement accounts. So whenever you're employed, most companies, they have something called a retirement account that's available. The four main types of accounts, they are 403B plans, 401k plans, 457 plans, and then something called an IRA, or an individual retirement account. So whenever you hear the numbers 403B, 401k, 457, they essentially all mean the same thing. It's the savings vehicle you have through your employer, but the IRS just tries to confuse us all by adding a different section of the tax code. For each of these type of plans, the employer's a little bit different. So for example, in a 403B plan, it's for nonprofit employees. So what I mean by that is American Red Cross, Salvation Army, even a school district. They're not in the business to be making money. They're a nonprofit. 401k plans are for-profit companies. So like ExxonMobil, Circle K, they're in the business to make as much money as possible. 457 plans are city/municipalities. So the city of Cuyahoga Falls, the county of Summit, if you work for them, you have something called a 457 or deferred compensation, or an IRA is what we call an individual retirement account. So you have no employer for this. So you have to be employed, you have to show earned income, but it's not tied to any specific employer because it's an individual account. But with each of these types, the IRS says you can and cannot do certain things. So for example, they say, well, how much can you contribute for each of these? For a 403B plan, for this year in 2024, it's $23,000 a year. And then it's also the same for a 401k plan and a 457 plan. When you reach age 50 plus, the IRS says, hey, you reached age 50, congratulations. You're able to save extra into your retirement accounts. So then you're able to save $30,500 a year into a 403B, 457, and 401k plan. For an individual retirement account this year, it's $7,000 a year. And then when you reach 50 plus, you can contribute an extra $1,000 for a total of $8,000 a year. Now you're probably wondering, well, why is there a difference between the contribution amounts? It's just the IRS can't discriminate in the employer-sponsor world. So they say you're able to save more, but for some reason they just say they put the restricted amount for the IRAs. As far as access goes, so a lot of times people say, okay, well, I'm saving into these different types of accounts. When do I get to benefit? Like, when am I able to start pulling money from these accounts? So as far as access goes, it's typically for 403B age 59 and a half, or if you separate service at 55. And by separation of service, you are no longer employed at that employer. You're able to pull the money out without any penalty. 401k plans, generally 59 and a half as well. 457 plans, it's a little bit different. I'm going to talk about the different caveats in my next video, so stay tuned to that. But typically, it's any age you separate service. By saying it, separation of service means you're no longer employed. So technically speaking, if you are a police officer and you're working for the city of Akron and you're 30 years old and you're like, hey, I want to go to the city of Cuyahoga Falls, and you're contributing to a 457 plan, technically speaking, you're able to pull money out of your deferred compensation account at that point in time. For an IRA, it's age 59 and a half. Again, that's kind of the magic number, the golden standard. When you're 59 and a half, you're able to get to the money without any penalties. If you do pull money out of these accounts before these different access points, the IRS, Uncle Sam, our favorite uncle, doesn't give us any gifts, but we always give him gifts, right? Says they're going to penalize you 10% of whatever you pull out. So if you pull out $1,000 and you haven't met any of these requirements as far as accessibility, $100 is your penalty to Uncle Sam, plus potential taxes due as well. There is a way around that though. Most employers or employer-sponsored plans have something called a loan provision. Now, at least in our firm, our philosophy is we're the lender of last resort. When we do a financial plan, we try to build whatever savings goal in there if we're trying to buy, again, a house, a boat, a car, whatever it is. We build that in the plan, but if you do get in a pinch and you absolutely have to, again, lender of last resort, 403B plans typically allow loans, 401k plans as well, 457 plans, IRAs, you're not allowed to borrow from yourself. Now, the way the loans work, typically it's a 5-year note up to a 10-year, depending on what type of loan it is, but that's just a little bit different depending on the circumstances there. So those are the different types of retirement accounts available for employers. The next one we're going to talk about is a non-retirement account. You also might hear this be called an investment account. Those are kind of interchangeable words that kind of mean the same things. So for a non-retirement account, so for like the type, you really don't even need to be employed. So I'm going to say no employer. You don't really need to show earned income because it's all going in after you already paid Uncle Sam taxes. So anyone can set up a retirement or a non-retirement account here. As far as access goes, there's no age restrictions on it as well. So what I mean by that is, my wife and I, for example, we do save in an investment account, and the money goes in there. It's not really necessarily earmarked for certain things, but if we wanted to buy a car, put a down payment on the car, down payment on the next house, buy a silk rug made in the Middle East, we can actually pull money out of our investment account, and there's no 10% IRS penalty because there's no age restrictions on when we can get to the money. As far as contribution amounts go, for the retirement accounts, Uncle Sam says you can only put a certain amount in. It's lower for IRAs. Technically speaking, in an investment account, it's infinite, right? So you make $1 million a year and you want to save $500,000 in a non-retirement account, you have that flexibility to do so. But the IRS does not say you have to limit the amount of contributions into the account as well. And really, that's kind of the summary of what a non-retirement account is. Now, in my next video, I'm going to talk about how the IRS views it for taxation purposes. So, for example, between a pre-tax account, a Roth account, and an after-tax account, when you pay taxes on it, how does that work? That's what's going to be discussed in the next video, so make sure you stay tuned for that.